Good afternoon. I'd like to thank ARM for the opportunity to present to you all today, and also thank all of you for hanging about. I appreciate this is very much the graveyard shift. So TCAT SMBTS, so we stand for Tissues, Cells and Advanced Therapeutics of the Scottish National Blood Transfusion Service, and that's quite a mouthful, so I'll continue to say TCAT for the rest of this presentation. And I'd like to try and convince you over the course of this presentation that because we are a blood transfusion service that's kind of uniquely positioned within the National Health Service in Scotland, that we have the capacity to provide an end-to-end solution for all of your cell and gene therapy needs. So a bit of background, who are we and what do we do? So as the name would suggest, we're the provider of blood and blood products for the people of Scotland. That's a population of about 5.5 million people. In order to provide those products, we have one blood and tissue establishment. We have an integrated supply chain to 28 hospital blood banks, and we run 4 clinical apheresis suites. To put our products into context, that's around 112,000 active blood donors per annum. We manufacture 180,000 components every single year that make their way into just less than 60,000 patients. Now, TCAT is responsible for everything within our organisation that's not blood. So that includes live and cadaveric tissue procurement and processing. It includes non-substantial manipulated cell therapies, and it includes intermediates and ATMPs, which is essentially why we're here today. And in order to deliver those type of products, we are heavily licensed. So in the UK, we have a blood establishment authorisation from the MHRA. We have a Human Tissue Authority licence for our tissue and cell processing. We have all the ATMP licences you require, so an MIA and an MIA-IMP for authorised and clinical trial products, a specials licence for unlicensed medicines. Our testing labs all have GMP certificates. Our stem cell lab is JACE accredited, and we also have an HFEA license because we're a centralised storage site for gametes. So we are heavily licensed and constantly inspected. Now, in terms of offering this end-to-end solution, the way we tend to work, and we have numerous examples in our track record of when we've achieved this, is by working very closely between our development and translational teams and our GMP teams and our quality colleagues. And we really work hand in glove throughout that whole process. Now, many of our processes start with a research idea, which could be our own or could be through partnership with university collaborators. And then makes its way through all the usual aspects of engineering runs, tech transfer, the regulatory applications, all the way through to GMP manufacturing and the delivery of the clinical trial. And throughout that whole process, we constantly review and refine. We have the subject matter experts on the development side working very closely with the GMP production operators, particularly for fastidious products. And we've found that has worked incredibly well for us over the last 10 years or so. In terms of our track record with products, we are very much a multi-product organisation, and I'll go through a few of our products just now. On the tissues and cell side, we procure and process heart valves, which are used to correct congenital abnormalities in children. We process tendons for cruciate ligament repair, skin for burns victims, bone for a variety of orthopaedic procedures, reproductive tissue for young children that are about to undergo chemotherapy or radiotherapy as a consequence of a particular type of cancer that may render them infertile. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also a centralised storage facility for gametes in Scotland. We also procure corneas for corneal transplant. Our non-substantial manipulated cell therapy program is kind of split into 3 main areas. We're an HPC service, so hematopoietic progenitor cells for the entire east coast of Scotland. That is for the treatment, as you all know, of a variety of hematological malignancies. We collect mononuclear cell starting material for both, for CAR-T, both Kymriah and Yescarta were part of the supply chain for both of these products. And we also have a pancreatic islet transplantation service for the treatment of type 1 diabetes, and are one of the only centres in Europe, actually, that is continuing to provide that service. So a vast array of different products and expertise built up over a considerable period of time. And you can see from the table there the length of time that we've been involved in some of these processes and the typical numbers that we manufacture per annum. On the ATMP side, we always think about this as being the new side of the business, but to be perfectly honest, we've been doing this for around about 20 years too. We, again, a variety of different products and disease indications that we're involved in. Dendritic cells, T cells, we have an unlicensed T cell product that we issue globally for the treatment of EBV-driven PTLD. We are currently in clinical trial with a virus-specific T cell for COVID-19. We've been involved in macrophage manufacture for liver cirrhosis for a number of years, both in the autologous setting for chronic cirrhosis, and are about to enter a clinical trial with an allogeneic cryopreserved product for acute liver injury. We've started to venture into more sort of intermediate, both multipotent and pluripotent cell banks in recent years, and have gathered a lot of experience and have a huge amount of expertise in that space. And over the next couple of years, we're going to be venturing into manufacturing products from those starting materials as well. And you see there, I think very importantly, that all of this work is based in good science. You know, there's good high-impact journals that have come out of these trials, and the references are there accordingly. Now, in order to manufacture products of this diverse range, you need state-of-the-art facilities. And we have a single site in Edinburgh that has over 600 square metres of development space. Within that space, there are 4 biosafety level 2 cell culture rooms. We have dedicated development and translational suites. We have comprehensive flow cytometry, cell sorting facility, and we also provide high content screening and imaging platforms. But I think most importantly, from a development point of view, is our staff. We have 30 staff, the vast majority of whom have Ph.D s. They've built up a huge amount of experience over a considerable period of time, particularly in areas such as pluripotent cell biology and in a variety of somatic cell therapies, which I think has obviously been a factor in our success thus far. Our state-of-the-art facilities are also present within this same single centre. So this is the Jack Copland Centre in Edinburgh. This is the single site for processing all the blood for Scotland that I mentioned in my first slide. Within this facility, we have 5 clean rooms. They operate between your grade A and C, total footprint of around 500 square metres. We have directly adjacent development and translational suites. We have access to an additional 500 square metres of grade D space, which we share with our colleagues in blood manufacturing, where we can do closed processing and where we can house isolators. We have an extensive cryogenic storage facility. We have space for up to 50 vessels and numerous CNC support areas. And that building has been operational now for the last 4 or 5 years. In addition, we also have access to another site in Edinburgh, the Centre for Regenerative Medicine. This is actually a University of Edinburgh building. It's housed and is a real hub for the best minds in Regen Med. And being on site with those academics really helps us in terms of collaborating those early stage clinical trials. We're also in very close proximity to the clinical research facility on that site, which is where we infuse a lot of these clinical trial products. And Edinburgh Royal Infirmary is right across the road, and that's one of the largest hospitals in Scotland. We all know the importance of QC and analytics to the types of products that we manufacture. So we have integrated QC across 3 sites to ensure product safety, quality, and efficacy. This is split into environmental monitoring and trending. We've got a dedicated team across our manufacturing facilities that are responsible for basically keeping control of the facility, making sure they keep on top of any kind of issues with contamination that inevitably arise within aseptic manufacturing facilities. We have comprehensive sterility and stasis testing, both rapid platforms in the case of Bactilert and more conventional 2.6.1 inoculation methods. We do our own endotoxin testing. We have access to mycoplasma testing. From a cell identity and characterization point of view, we have, as I mentioned earlier, MHRA accredited flow cytometry. We have real expertise in developing analytics for these types of products over a long period of time. We can do enumeration of starting material and final products, both on the flow platforms and also in hematology analyzers that we have a considerable number of. We have molecular platforms. We're well used to developing and validating functional and potency assays for these types of products, and we have integrated procedures in place for stability of these types of products that can be very easily adapted to new products. So I'd like to kind of summarise the way that I think we can really provide this end-to-end solution, and in true good GMP style, I'm going to use the 5 Ps of GMP to do this, although I've added an extra one, so see if you can spot it. Starting off with our premises, again, state-of-the-art, multi-product, a total of 1,000 square metres of classified space, all underpinned by a comprehensive contamination control strategy, which is of paramount importance for a multi-product manufacturing facility of this nature. Control of 4 apheresis suites, extensive cryogenic storage, which also has wholesale dealers authorization, which means that we can store authorized ATMPs as well. Our staff, absolutely our greatest asset. We have very high staff retention rates, again, probably because we're part of the public sector. Staff that have been here for over 30 years. They work across the full range of development, production. We have QC, independent QA, and a couple of QPs. We spend a lot of time with our staff in aseptic technique, and I think that's of critical importance for our type of products in aseptic manufacturing, because if you actually look at recent inspection reports from most of the regulators, it tends to be the basic stuff that most people get wrong because they're too busy focusing on the fancy stuff. So actually thinking about the very basics of aseptic manufacturing and letting people understand the implications of bad practice and poor GMP is really, really important. And that's when I talk about a tangible approach. We try where possible to send our staff with the products to the patient's bedside for some of those early stage clinical trials. They work hand in glove with the clinicians as part of the thawing and pass over for reconstitution and infusion into these patients. And there is absolutely nothing more effective than making your clean room operator understand the significance of bad practice when they actually see the patient at the end of it, and it's something that we have advocated for a long period of time. In terms of our processes, well, as you would expect, a heavily regulated environment. We do comprehensive gap analysis across the boards, horizon scanning for any new regs that come out. So we are absolutely compliant with Udrelex Volume 4, the new Annex 1, Part 4 for ATMPs, PICS Annex 2A. We work across that full range of tissues, cells, and ATMP manufacturers, so can support that entire supply chain. We work both closed and open process. We're very experienced in automation, particularly in cell processors. We have that in-house tech transfer, which I think is a huge advantage as well. Potency, which is the extra P that I've added, and I think that's probably the biggest change I've seen in the 20 years that I've been working in this area, is that the expectations from the regulators have increased dramatically around that. And I don't just mean cell identity, analytics, functional assays. I'm talking also about a holistic view of our products. So actually thinking about the quality of your excipients, thinking about your packaging, your labeling, extractables, leachables, robustness, all of those things that are going to give you a really robust supply chain, and stability across the shelf life, critical importance. These are all things that we're very used to and that we benefit from greatly being part of a blood transfusion organisation. Paperwork, the one that depresses most people, but very much part of GMP. We're a very mature organisation. We have a QMS that has been running for decades and evolved over that period of time. We have well-established batch manufacturing records and templates that we can adapt very quickly to different products that we know work very effectively. We're very experienced in writing IMPDs and the clinical trial application process, and have numerous examples of that. But finally, again, going back to that track record and products, we have this demonstrable track record with a range of products. We are very much in the public domain in that respect. As part of blood transfusion, we benefit from the best virology testing that's available. We have this donor pool available to us that has people who are tested constantly, who have a comprehensive medical history. So these sort of things put us in a really strong position to help with generation of very safe starting material. We can provide comprehensive QC and analytics. We have customer confidence, and I don't think you can put a price on that. And I'm not just talking about Joe Public, I'm talking about our clinical users, our surgical users. They trust a blood transfusion organisation, and I think that is a huge asset for us. And finally, that integrated supply chain to all hospitals in Scotland puts us in a really strong distribution from a distribution standpoint. So just to finish off, who do we work with as part of our CDMO package? Well, it really varies, and these are some examples of recent collaborations that we've been involved in. It varies from multinational pharma, UK universities, SMEs, both in Europe and the UK, and these are some of the asks that we were given and the approximate time periods that it took us to deliver these projects. But I stress that we absolutely can deliver bespoke solutions for every single customer. We are sure that we can provide support that suits your needs, and whether that's as a CDMO service provider, a co-development partner, a co-applicant, or even just outsourced R&D activity, outsourced QC and analytics, please come and speak to us. We're not very good at advertising ourselves, and this is part of the reason why me and my colleagues are here today. All our contact details are there. We'd be delighted to speak to anyone in any ways that we can provide some services and support accordingly. And that's an image of our manufacturing facility in Edinburgh. If you're in Edinburgh, it's a lovely city. Quick plug, feel free to drop by. And as you see, the sun does shine on occasion in Scotland. Not as often as here, but it does happen. And thanks for your attention.